for the '09 season, it was a guy named Adam Amin,
Mm,
who is, if you look up Adam Amin, he's like one of the top announcers in the NFL. He's a Bulls announcer
yep.
and so forth and so on. And, Adam cut his teeth and, Adam pulled the tarp and Adam, did all those things as a young college kid. But he got one of his first starts working for the Railcat.
He hits it high in the air. Left field. This one's got a chance. And let's go on a cowhide. Joyride. Sound the horn. The Railcats clear the yard.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to the RailCats Talk podcast. We are here finally with part three of the Roger Wexelberg interview. This was a 2 hour-ish conversation, and I really thought to kind of help with the limited off season we've had so far. Not a lot of signings, that with splitting up the three parts might help, and it has helped. So I really appreciate, and Chuck really appreciates everyone's support for this interview. And like I said, I will have at some point this whole thing into one big episode, so that way you don't have to worry about the parts all cut up and all that fun jazz and stuff like that. But without further ado, sit back. Here's part three with the first GM of the Railcats, Roger Wexelberg. So, you go from, manager to manager, and then, you land with Greg Taggert, who recently, I think the 2022 season was, or the 2021 season was his last season. Then he went to Arizona with the Diamondbacks in the rookie league, or Arizona rookie league over that way. But what was the steps to bringing Greg in, and was his plan to be with Gary for as long as he
Well, I
did?
I want to know what it was like to fire your first manager.
Not fun. It was not fun. I mean, and I really like Gary Templeton, who's we're referring to. Gary, who was a heck of a player. I mean, when he was traded to the Padres for Ozzie Smith, he was a better player in the deal at the time. It didn't end up that way. And if you look at Gary's stats, he had a very, very solid career. He was also in the big leagues at 19. Had natural talent, was the first player to have 100 hits from each side of the plate in the same year. There's only been two people that have done it, and it's him and Willie Wilson, and they did it in back-to-back years. But he also, it was controversial. He had a couple controversial things during the course of his career, so he was always viewed as kind of I don't want malcontent to some degree by the public. And he kind of resurrected, I think, some of that unfounded negativism, and he was manager, double A, and so forth. And he just seemed, when I hired him, like the perfect fit for what we needed. In Gary, a big leaguer, a name guy. Um, the the issue that Gary had, kind of what we talked about earlier, is he didn't have that independent network. So it's very hard for him to get players. So we relied on other people to help us get players. And ultimately, we just didn't have good players. And, you know, at the All-Star break in 2004, yeah, I remember the All-Star game was in Joliet, and the press, Mike Clark and Mike Ozelpoff, kind of cornered me and said, "What are you going to do? You're going to fire?" And because we were awful at that point, and no, 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 but started getting pressure from the ownership group as the second half went on, and we were looking at maybe letting him go for the last 2 weeks of the season and bringing in somebody else. And ultimately, I just said, I don't feel right doing that, and so we didn't do it. But the day after the season ended, I brought Gary in and we talked, and I told him we were going to go in another direction. And obviously anybody, I've been fired a couple times, during the course of my career. It's not fun.
Right.
It's not a fun conversation, and it's really not a fun because I really like Gary as a
Hmm.
person, and somebody you like, you're letting him go is just not a fun thing. But it needed to be done. It was my job, um, and ultimately it worked out. So it's never fun firing somebody. Let's just
Hmm.
put it that way. Um, so I actually had somebody else slotted for the managerial job the next year. It was a guy named Marty Scott, longtime baseball guy. He was a manager in St. Paul. I knew Marty when I was in Oklahoma City. He was the farm director of the Texas Rangers. Ultimately, he got back into baseball and won a championship in Kansas City, in the Northern League. But Marty was he had this thing in the pot with USA Baseball running the Olympic team, or what would be the Olympic team for women's baseball. And he just couldn't commit. So I got a call from Greg one day. He was looking for a job, excuse me, trying to make the next step. And I told him I was really upfront with him. And Greg can tell you this story too. I've got somebody, but if you're willing to, we had a retreat in Las Vegas, and he lived in California. If you're willing to come down, I'd be happy to talk with you. Just, but no, we have somebody else in mind. It's not a done deal, so forth and so on. Um, so Greg came down, which again shows a lot, eh, how much he wanted the job. He knew there was another candidate, and a really reputable candidate. Um, we met in the restaurant at the Flamingo Hotel, and we ended up staying there for like 4 hours, just talking baseball and his philosophy and what we were looking for. And I left that meeting, and I was actually, in some ways, hoping that the other guy wasn't going to work out, which ultimately he didn't. Not anything against Marty. It was just that I was that impressed with Greg and Greg's passion. So we ended up hiring Greg. He came in and he had full control. And he's what I was looking for. Marty would have been the same way. Marty, obviously being a farm director for a major league organization for 10 years or so, had a few baseball connections. um, but Greg had all this independent connections, and he brought a lot of the guys with him that he had, Tanner Townsend, Steve Hockey, who were cornerstones of the RailCat championship years. And we had a handful of players left from the '04 team, Scott Samuels, Travis Kerber, a couple others, but the main guy was Anthony Iapozi. And Anthony was kind of the leader of the team in '05. He ended up winning the MVP for the championship series. And if you know who he is, he was a hitting coach for the Cubs a couple years ago. Last I saw, he was AAA manager. I mean, just he has a really good career. Great people person, great leadership skills. He was our center fielder, and he was the leader of the team. And those Kerber and Anthony and Scott knew what it was like the year before, and how Greg changed the culture, not in the sense of a negative culture, but a winning culture, and what it takes to be successful. And he turned the team around by the All-Star break, which we held the All-Star game in Gary in '05. We were right in the hunt. And in the second half, the key decision that was made that year, Greg traded with about 3 weeks left in the season, our two all-stars that year, Jason Colson and Quentin Oldenburg, um, who were both rookies and were kind of, running out of gas. For a guy named Lantini, who was with Winnipeg. We traded the two guys for him. And what Lentini brought was a a flair. He was an exciting player. We were able to move Anthony because Anthony got hurt late in the season to left field, and Lentini played center field. And it just made all the difference in the world to our team. It brought a spark to the team, and that we met business and we went on a tear the rest of the season and did really well. But I will never forget. I was at my sister's house. One of her kids, my nephew, was having a birthday, and Greg calls me and say, "Hey, what do you think about this? I want to trade our two all-stars for this guy and Lantini." And I really didn't know that much about him. And I said, "Greg, are you sure you want to do that? That doesn't, on paper, that doesn't look like a really good move." So, nope, I'm positive. I said, "All right, you're in charge." And sure enough, everything Greg did in really my tenure with him worked out. Uh, excuse me. And that's just another example of something that worked out.
What was the difference in, like, what are some of the examples that Greg brings that you didn't have in the previous 3 years to
Uh,
cause guys to be more motivated or more connected with each other, play better together?
Total control. I mean, I'm the boss, and if you know Greg or ever met him, most mild-mannered guy. Um, but in the clubhouse, he was in charge. This is the way we're going to do it. He always, in spring training, had a day where everybody had to run a mile, and just the camaraderie of building a team together and the togetherness and bringing in high quality character guys that may not be the best guys in the league, but they play well together. And some of them ended up being the best guys in the league. Willie Glenn was the best pitcher in the Northern League for 3 or 4 years, and it was a lock. When he pitched almost. Tanner Townsend, one of the guys he brought in, ended up being the MVP in the Northern League one year and hit 360 something the year he won the MVP. Jay Pesci was a shortstop, a Stanford guy. Just Eric McNamee, just guys that were quality individuals that played together as a team. If you look at that core team from '05, 4 or 5 of those guys played for 5 or 6 years. And in
Mhm.
independent ball, you don't really see that,
Yeah.
you know. Just okay, I mean, you would have to talk to some of the players on what they viewed that as, but Greg, he was in charge and he handled it. He
So,
wanted to do it his
oh,
way. I
yeah.
mean, and I was fine with that. I think in later years that might have not worked with some other people, but if you let him do it, he got it done.
Yeah, I mean he did it for almost 20 years with the Railcats, and he brought 3 championships, 2 Northern Leagues and an American Association. And granted, towards the end of the career, I think there's a little bit with the American Association changing. Kind of, they're trying to compete more with the Atlantic League, so they're trying to bring in bigger names and stuff like that. So I think sometimes that runs into a bit of issue with money, especially being with Gary and it not being what it probably was when we first started with the Railcats. But I'm getting sidetracked of what I wanted to question. You keep mentioning the All-Star game in 2005. What led to Gary being approved for the All-Star game? Was there a certain checklist that you had to kind of go through and the city had to try to get together, or was it just kind of one of those like random hat of the draw and oh, Gary's got the next one?
Well, the new stadium, that was
Okay.
the biggest catalyst. And it was in. I'm trying to remember. The first year I was there in '01, it was in Winnipeg. '02, I think it was in Lincoln. I can't remember where no, '02 is in Quebec City
Mm,
because that year we were with that I can't even remember the name of the other league, but we kind of had a agreement to work with that league. And then in '03 it was in Lincoln and '04 it was in Joliet. It was kind of the progression of the stadiums,
okay.
the newer stadiums to showcase them. And we had done so well the first couple of years and we knew we could handle it, and we did.
Yeah.
It was a great, not only the game, the whole event. We had Mike Ditka and Buck O'Neill at our luncheon.
Mm,
And Buck O'Neill stole the show. and the game itself was nice. The home run hitting contest was fun. Just showcasing Gary. We did some things around the community that was really good. Had a good golf outing with the GMs and stuff. We stayed at the Radisson Hotel the night before Friday night. We had a comedian that was like a Harry Carey
Mm.
impersonator that was hit it out of the ballpark. It was just a really really nice event.
What was the most stressful part about running the All-Star game?
Just putting it all together, but as I mentioned earlier, I had my wife run it.
Mm.
As far as the logistics are
Yeah.
concerned, um, the nuts and bolts, and that took a lot of pressure off of me. In fact, she did such a good job that Kansas City hired her to run their All-Star game the next year in '06.
Wow.
But she's an event player. Even when we did the Fan Fest, when we had the Fan Fest in '09 and 10, she kind of was the catalyst of putting the
Mm.
nuts and bolts together. Um, just getting it done, make sure everything went right. Didn't want any hiccups. Um, and there really weren't any.
I'm wondering what the interview process is like when you hire your wife.
It's more of a begging process.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Please do it.
Please do this.
Uh, what are we talked a lot of, obviously there's been some struggles in there, and we've talked a lot of positives because there's a lot of positive to take away from this whole situation in general. But what were some of the biggest hills to climb, obstacles to get over, the biggest struggles that kind of may have kept you up at night?
In the beginning, I mean, every year there's something. I mean, there's always something that keeps you up at night. And in the beginning it was getting people there and trying to create an atmosphere where people will want to come back and they'll have a good time and you build a good business model and you have fun and ultimately you want to win too. But at the beginning it was more the marketing end than the winning end. Then when we got going and we weren't winning, then it was like, well, now we need to win. Um, and just everyday struggles in any other job that you would have. You want it to go well. You want it to have. We use the moniker tradition of excellence, and that's what we always try to strive for, not only on the field but off the field. Create the best product that you can for the fans. Both on and off the field, and we did a lot of things to get people to the ballpark, especially in my later years. And I mean, you look at '09 and 10, and we had Blackhawk Night, and Stan
Hmm.
Mikita came out. The next year Dennis Savard came out. I had struck up a relationship with the Blackhawks, and they let us use their marks and logos, which you don't normally get
Hmm.
to do. And Jonathan, we did a Jonathan Taves poster giveaway the first year, and he signed a couple of them that we
Hmm.
gave out to people. Um, you know, uh, Daryl Dawkins came out. We had one year we had Bobby Douglas, the old Bears quarterback, and Otis Wilson come out, and the following year we had
I'm,
Bobby Douglas
I'm,
again.
I'm looking for the autograph on the one that you sent me.
Uh, and the um, I don't have one of those either. In fact, I don't even have a poster now. I gave it to somebody. But anyway, we had the guy who played, Chewbacca come
Hmm.
out and throw out the first ball. We had one year we had a girl that was in the Bachelorette come out. I mean, just doing things like that to get people out. Fergie Jenkins came out 2 years in a row, and we did a contest with Indiana 105 where Lucky fans got to take batting practice off of him. And I tell you, one of the things I cherish the most is I threw my son in there the second year, and I've got this great picture. It's up on my wall in the downstairs of my son swinging, his name on the video board, Fergie on the mound, his name on the back of his uniform, and the ball looks like it's going to be a home run. But in reality, his teammates are out there, going to get it right past shortstop. And ironically, one of his teammates at that point was the guy that was the groundskeeper for a number of years with the RailCats, Noah Simmons. And when he was a little kid, not a little kid, but 13, 14, 15, I coached him in travel ball. But anyway, just things like that to come out. We did giveaways, fireworks on Friday night. The famous chicken came out. It became a staple for our fireworks show. We would back in the day we'd shoot them off past all the railroad tracks
Mm.
and use really big. Mark Ruffner was the guy who did the fireworks and always took pride in doing it. Yeah, I mean, just giveaway. It's amazing looking back. We did a giveaway one time. This was after Michael Jackson passed. It was a bobble glove, and it
Mm.
was like his glove, and it was a bobblehead with um, the glove, and it was just kind of
You're gonna tell me
cool. Sorry, I'm
that
getting
was
up.
not, that was not on the list.
So,
That's
like right
awesome.
here.
That
The
is
problem with the bobble glove is it was hard to keep it in one piece
Oh,
because it would.
yeah.
So this one, just the glove you know, the hat. So anyway, doing things like that, trying to get people out to the ballpark beyond the baseball.
I've had recently two ideas that I've floated by some people and even let them take credit for my wonderful ideas. One of those is a Tommy Williams bobblehead.
That would be great.
That to me, I think that a lot of old Railcats fans would make their way back to the park for, or would be looking for. And the other thing that I've kind of thought about was, Kansas City changed their name to the Monarchs, and they have a close affiliation with the Negro League Museum. That for one game, we change our jerseys to a Negro League jersey, a Negro League team, and we auction that off and give the money to the museum.
Hey, that's a great idea. And I don't know if they do it anymore, but we used to do like 3 or 4 jersey nights like
Yep.
that each year and sell them. And people buy them and the money, goes to charity, depending on what it was. Like we did a breast cancer jersey one time and it went to, I think, Methodist Hospital or something like that. But yeah, that would be great. And, the Negro League Hall of Fame, and going back to Buck O'Neill. So Buck O'Neill, came out and was a speaker at our luncheon. But the following year, he actually played in the All-Star. He was 96 years old, I believe, in Kansas City, and he took an at bat. And he passed away like 3 or 4 months later. But we got to take a tour of the Negro League Museum with Buck O'Neill. That was cool.
Yeah, that's priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
So,
another classy gentleman.
so I'm going to let those be your ideas. You know the people to reach out to, Renee or whoever. Go ahead and pitch those ideas to them so that it gets done. Leave my name off. It's your idea. Run.
Now, doesn't have to be my idea.
Oh,
They're not going to listen to me now anyway. Renee
they
would,
might.
but
They might. I mean,
They might.
we had this year. We had a sold out crowd for one game,
Yeah,
and
Union night.
it was
So
nice. That many people there, even though we were having a losing season, still just the crowd, and the energy that the crowd brings, priceless, and I think that there's me and Kyle have gone to Blackhawks game, and the crowd at the Blackhawks game when they give the national anthem is one of those things that like makes your hair stand up on the back of your neck. Seeing that for me, seeing the Steel Yard sold out and that many people there had the same effect. And so I couldn't imagine what it was like for you to have solid seasons of a lot of people there. Um, Even I saw a picture, one of the posters that you had sent that shows, or you had showed me, that shows the sky view of the stadium, and it shows all the parking lots packed. Like two businesses behind the steel yard and four businesses, on the other side. And just imagining that, to me, is just insane.
and those were the things that were gratifying when you hit the nail on the head with a promotion, or you win a championship, or win some games, or just do better. That's what makes it all fun. I mean, working in baseball is not an easy gig. I mean, there's a lot of hours to it. You pull a lot of tarps. because at the minor league level, everybody does that. But at the end of the day, it's all worth it. I mean, I look back, I started in baseball over 40 years ago, and I don't work in baseball now, but I work in sports. I work in the college athletics space, and I have for the last 10 years. And, so my career, for the most part, has been sports related, and I wouldn't trade the memories for anything. Like when I was in Orlando, it was one of the years Michael Jordan played baseball. I got to see that up close and personal. Just different things throughout your career that you get to experience and the people you meet, make it all worthwhile.
Well, you got to see Michael Jackson at the Steelyard.
I did. Yep.
And I was there. It's amazing to me.
Yep. I still have a picture of us together. It's actually me, Kevin Spudik, Ed Charbonneau, who's a state senator, who worked at U.S. Steel at the time, George Babcock, who was the president of U.S. Steel, and Scott King, in a picture with Michael Jackson. So,
How do you get that style or that type of person to come to Gary?
it had nothing to do with me or us. Um, he hadn't, well, he's from Gary, and he
Right.
hadn't been back for a long time. And the day he came out to the steel yard, he sat there. He couldn't have been nicer. I mean, he was just a gentleman, and of course, I had 15 minutes of interaction with him, but he couldn't have been nicer to me. But the crowd and the push and all the stuff you see, it was real, and it was insane too. But it was very cool. I mean, it was very cool to have him at the steel yard.
I couldn't. I mean, we've had LaTroy Hawkins there.
Hmm.
We've had I can't think of anybody. Ron Kittle was there a couple years ago for breast cancer night. We've had some big names there, but just I mean, off the wall people like somebody from The Bachelor or Bachelorette, that's to me, that's kind of like, okay, where did this come from? Getting Michael Jackson, yeah, he's from the area, and that's a great get, but how do you get a guy who, makes millions of dollars for his music and, lives far away to take time out of his day to come to a baseball game that he might or might not even like and be able
Well, he actually didn't come to a baseball game.
okay.
He came to town, but he came to the steel yard, and they set up a stage in center
Hmm.
field, and what they had was local acts play in front of him, which
Okay.
was really cool. And then he went up and gave a speech, and there's pictures of him and Rusty interacting, and it was a very cool experience, that's for sure. Then, unfortunately, a couple years later, when he passed away, we hosted a memorial at the Steel Yard, which beyond any baseball game is most people that's ever been in the Steel Yard because people were on the field and in the stands and outside the stadium. It was just jam packed, and they had some acts that came out. Denise Williams, who was from Gary, who had Hear It From the Boys, I think it was a hit song, and yeah, his dad came out, and Jesse Jackson was there, Sharpton was there, the national news was there. Again, not and they had Mark Spencer, who's a local guy, entertainment guy, put together. He was like the host of the event. Um, his dance crew put together a performance, a Thriller, that was really, really cool on the stage. So yeah, again, not the best of occasions, but it was a cool event.
And I'm assuming safe.
Oh yeah,
That many people, right? That many
oh yeah.
people inside and outside of the stadium. It's safe. That's
There
always
was no incidences at all. No.
yeah. That's great. Under poor circumstances, but great outcome.
Yes.
It uh, just shows that, uh, like you said earlier, Steelyard safe. It's a good environment for people to bring their families, for kids to be. Um, I've stated before, I have a kid that was struggling in school. He worked at the Steelyard this year, and all of a sudden he's got a totally different work ethic and doing good in school. And it's like, they instill some good values in you there. And the other thing I would mention, and you said this before, it wasn't about having the best player; it was the best rounded player, both on and off the field. And that is a culture that we still brag
Hmm.
about, because we notice it. There isn't a single player on the field that won't say hi to me or hi to a kid that's sitting next to me or 4 seats down from me. There's not a single player that won't sit there and talk to a kid. I see guys playing catch with the kids before they go out there to warm up. I mean, it's an amazing environment, and I can't sell it enough.
That's one of the beauties about minor league baseball is, when you're a 5-year-old kid, they're big leaguers to you,
Hmm.
and if they take time, in which they almost always do, to sign an autograph or interact with you, it it's a big deal, and it can make a huge impression for a youngster, and the memories that they have doing that stuff.
What was I should say, obviously, minor league baseball, independent baseball, the entertainment side is what really brings fans to the stadium. I mean, 90% of the people that go there just are there for the entertainment and 10% are there for the baseball. So, what most of your off season was it spent more on trying to come up with ideas, giveaways, entertainment value versus the actual on the field product?
One of the beauties about minor league baseball is everybody shares ideas.
Hmm.
When I worked in affiliated ball, you'd go to the baseball winter meetings and you'd have these seminars, and somebody in San Bernardino, California may have an idea that you're in Asheville, North Carolina, and you hadn't thought about it. You're not competition with those people. I mean, one of the biggest badges of honor is having ideas that people steal or
Hmm.
want. And I worked with Mike Veck, for 4 years in Fort Myers, and he's considered the guru of minor league baseball
Hmm.
promotions. His dad, Hall of Famer, White Sox owner in the Baseball Hall of Fame, because of his ideas. Bill Veck was the first one to put names on a uniform, have a
Hmm.
bat day, put the midget up the bat, Eddie Goodell. He actually planted the ivy, one of the people that planted the ivy at Wrigley Field because his dad was president of the Cubs. And Mike was a chip off the old block. And, what is the most popular thing in baseball right now is these Savannah Bananas, right? I mean, they've taken that to the next level, but it's all about entertainment. And that's what minor league baseball has done for years, not quite at the banana level, dancing around and stuff like that. But you look back at some of those popular things, Max Papkin, who you may not even know that name, but he was the clown prince of baseball that Bill Veck had out, and he was in Bull Durham. He's the guy in Bull
Hmm.
Durham, the guy coaching first base. He's been gone for many, many years, but that was entertainment that, Bill Veck brought to a minor league team. The chicken, having
Hmm.
the San Diego chicken come out to the ballpark. Those are the things that, are indigenous to making baseball fun for the fans. And quite frankly, what they remember the most as well.
I know we're going almost 2 hours now. You've done a lot of talking. You've done fabulous. This has been a great interview. This is awesome. Uh, Chuck, do you have anything that we've kind of missed on before I kind of ask a couple more questions so we can give Roger some of his night back?
It's amazing to be able to reconnect or to connect with this history. As a guy that had gone to a couple of RailCats games every other year or so, to really dig in, to be a host family, and that kind of stuff. It's a great experience, but understanding the history to me is kind of even better. And appreciating that, they always say, the backs that were broken for you to get to the top and that kind of thing, or who started the road, and that. And so before I ask any other questions, just thank you for that. Thank you for the time and effort. I'm sure that uh, probably has gone unrecognized. That the late nights, I talked to the current GM Anthony, and he says that every time he comes out of his office and he sees the baseball field, he just smiles and he's like, "I like this," and that's because of groundwork that you've laid. And so, thank you for that, and thank you for hiring some of the people that have kind of been the face of the Railcats, but also are currently the face of the Railcats, seeing that passion in them or the passion that they had for other things and being able to take that talent and put it towards Gary. Thank you for that. Those are things that you should be recognized for. When you have a championship, you have a couple of championships, um, you kind of change positions. You go on your way. And you mentioned this before, um, that the Railcats were kind of your baby, right? What's it like seeing your baby grown up and then walking away?
Well, first of all, thank you for that all those compliments. Well, at the end, I really didn't walk away. It was okay. I'm not renewing your contract. For whatever reason, the owner had his ideas, and it's not easy. I mean, it's not easy. There was a time, for a couple years that there was some bitterness, and but that's all gone now. I mean, just at least in my life, every time something negative has happened to me personally or whatever, it's always worked out for the best. I mean, like for instance, I alluded to earlier when the Devil Rays bought the team, and I was let go from that. It ended up better for me. I ended up in a better place, and the journey that I've taken since I left the Railcats, I'm very happy with where it's led me and where I am right now. I mean, the Railcats will always be a part of me. I mean, there's just no getting around that. I mean, I put too much sweat and tears into that organization, but you move on in life like any other thing, and I'm grateful for where I am now. I live in Montana. It's just like if it wasn't dark outside, you see a little snow-capped mountain that I can see from my house. I mean it, and I work at Montana State, and it's just a great place to work. I mean, ultimately, I'll probably end up back in Indiana somewhere or the Chicago area somewhere, but it was a great journey. I have nothing but fond memories of the things that we accomplished and the things we did and the people I've met and the people I've worked with. So it's all good.
Okay, I will ask, do you have anything else that you would like to share? Maybe a story that we didn't go over, a final thought of Gary, or maybe a misconception about Gary that's not a misconception in your eyes?
A couple of things, and this kind of goes back to the people that you hire, and sometimes you don't know what you have or where they're going to end up. So every year we would hire. Hire is a loose word because we didn't pay him. Our radio announcer, not originally, but Tom Nichols, who's been the voice of the Dayton Dragons now since he left the Railcats for the last 20 years, would always bring in somebody to help him out during the home games. And, they really wouldn't get paid or they're minimal. And one year he hired Andy Viano, who was a student at Valparaiso University. Ultimately, after Tom left, Andy became the radio guy. And Andy kind of passed that tradition down. So in '09 and '10, he hired guys from Valparaiso, kids, to come in and do the home games. Well, for the '09 season, it was a guy named Adam Amin,
Mm,
who is, if you look up Adam Amin, he's like one of the top announcers in the NFL. He's a Bulls announcer
yep.
and so forth and so on. And, Adam cut his teeth and, Adam pulled the tarp and Adam, did all those things as a young college kid. but he got one of his first starts working for the Railcats. So the second year, in 10, which was my last year, they brought in a guy named King Globally. Again, a student at Valparaiso University, and 3 years ago when I took this job at Montana State, we were changing broadcasters. The guy that was here got a job at Virginia Tech and was moving on to Virginia Tech. And my predecessor said, "Hey, we got this guy. We're going to hire him. He's a minor league baseball announcer in Modesto. His name's Keaton." And I didn't even put two and two together. I thought Keaton was his last name, you know. And then ultimately I heard who it was and I called him up and, even though I technically did hire him, he was already in the books, but how small this world is. So, you know, 14 years ago, this kid in college um, was just an aspiring announcer, and now he's the voice of the Montana State Athletics, and works for me again. Um, you see that over and over in sports and in baseball. You run into people, you make friends. I've made a lifetime of friends, working in this business that I'll never forget, and that at the end of the day makes it all worthwhile. Um, Again, my time in Gary was great. It was an experience not everybody gets to have, being the first to, build a franchise and then have it come to fruition where people didn't think it was going to happen or be good, and it was, and then to win, and then to keep building it year after year after year. There's no better feeling than in the accomplishments that we did. But, it was a team. I mean, whether it was Greg and all the players on the team, or our front office with all the good people, Becky Kramer, and people that have worked over the years in the office. I mean, another story of somebody who worked in our office, Janine Kerpiel. She was a softball player at Valparaiso University. We hired her as an intern in '04 or '03, one of those years. She's a vice president in the National Hockey League right now,
Wow.
with the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers.
Wow.
So I personally bask in the success of some of the people that have worked with us over the years. So, um, but we succeeded because we had a lot of great people.
Yeah, you have a lot of feathers in your cap, and I would say that uh, starting and running the Gary South Shore Railcats is just one of those feathers out of the many feathers that you succeeded in. And like Chuck said, without you, basically, I wouldn't have been able to start a podcast just covering the Railcats 4 years ago, and I wouldn't have led me to meet Chuck, who went on a eBay spree to buy some Railcats memorabilia that led us to you. You have been a gracious guest. You have, I mean, we could still talk for hours and hours on end, but you've been talking for almost 2 straight hours. So I know your voice is getting probably, your mouth getting a little dry, and probably gotta use the bathroom because I think we all gotta do that at the same time. But realistically, you know, we can now go to the steel yard during the summer every time that we go, and we can now recognize the guy that helped build the Railcats into what they are,
Yeah.
and a sustaining force in Gary, and the new ownership that came in, Mayor Melton, they revamped the suites and everything. So like it's still still breathing, living entity, a kid that's still growing up, and you're the father of that child basically. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to get to speak to you, to understand the history a little bit more, to really sit back and digest this. I mean, we've been excited for weeks now to get this conversation going. So we both appreciate you hopping on and joining us, and uh, we'll probably sometime down the road again probably ask for you to jump back on so we can even learn more stuff, because we really only got to the 2005 season. We didn't get to the eight and towards the end of your tenure with the Railcats. So there's still a lot to cover, but again, we just want to say thank you for hopping on and joining us today.
I really appreciate that, and it's been my pleasure. I love talking about it. It's been a long time, and it felt good to relive a few memories. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
We're going to give away some of the memorabilia that you
Yes.
have graciously passed on to me. And so when we uh, give away something to a RailCats fan, I'm going to take a picture of that and I'm going to send it, I'm going to email it to you so you can see that still, after 20 years, you still are having an impact in Gary and that we appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yep.
It's been my pleasure, and I'd be happy to come on some other time as well. So maybe right before the start of the baseball season.
Yeah, maybe
There we
we'll get you
go.
right on. So
Been talking about documentary. I think that that's got to happen. We've got so many people that have stories to tell that I think needs to be shared, and it just shows. Documentary is how long, Kyle? We an hour and a half. We've got 2 hours
depends.
right here of just this, and I mean, amazing stuff. So go Cats.
Yep.
Cats.
Yep. Yeah,
I
go Cat.
still say go Cats because we are the Bobcats here at
There you go. See, it all
Montana
ties it
State. So
together.
Bobcat, Railcat,
You
Same
say
difference.
you say Vamos
Except one's
Gatos.
real, one's fake, but we're not.
You say Vamos Gatos because that's what they're trying to do is Vamos
Yep.
Gatos.
Okay, but again, thank you, Roger, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
You guys as well. Thank you.
And there you have it. That concludes our interview with Roger Wexelberg. Thank you again, Roger, for jumping on and spending plethora of minutes, up to 2 hours with us. That includes before and during and after, just having that conversation. This was something. Again, we've said it numerous of times that we didn't think would be able to happen. Get to know the history a little bit of the Railcats, and be able to appreciate going to the steel yard just a little bit more, knowing a little bit of that history for those people that didn't know. I learned a lot. I mean, I've probably listened to this interview, editing and then doing all the other stuff, just probably a total of about 10 hours. And every time when I go back and I listen to it again, I learn something completely different, and it just makes me appreciate. I think it also, Chuck as well, appreciates just a little bit more on that stuff, and being able to really understand the process that goes into it. Now, there's more to dig into it than what we just got with that little bit with Roger, but we just learned so much more. So I really hope everyone learned something, that everyone's appreciative of Roger for taking his time out of his day to relive some of those memories. And the more that he opened up, the more excited he got about it. And this was probably one of the best interviews that we've done. He was so open about everything, and you asked a question and he answered it to the full extent and even more. This was just a great time. During the interview, I was just getting done working, 11, 12-hour day, and Chuck was coming down with the flu. So towards the end of it, me and him were both kind of feeling it, but we didn't really have to do a lot of talking because Roger was just so gracious with his time that he just kept going and going and going. So there's so much to it. So we appreciate him on that front of it. Coming up here next week will be our Christmas wish list, as Chuck and I will be going to the hot dogs with Santa, and he's going to exchange his gift with me so we can open it up. So look forward to that coming out sometime next week. And then we'll probably take a little bit of a hiatus, just with the holiday season, Christmas and New Year's, and my work schedule is going to be really hectic here. Just trying to get through the holiday season. So, trying to squeeze in editing can sometimes be a bit of a pain with the holiday season. So, but yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening. I hope you enjoyed the interview, and catch you on the flip side. Go Cats.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike three. Wrap this one up in green.